Many thanks for being there. And the program is still Good Morning Abuja, showing only on the Unity Station 98 Channel 5 Abuja. We have another guest with us in the studio, and this time around, we want to talk about awareness on building plan. What is it all about? Why is it important? And what are the key components we need to know when it comes to building plan? And we have a town planner with us this morning to do justice to the topic we have before us. Help us welcome Abubakar Sadiq. Abubakar Sadiq, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yes, this is not a cultural program this morning, so I will not greet you with your title. You are a town planner this morning, and we want to talk about creating more awareness on building plan. Why is it very, very important and necessary when it comes to building plan?
Yeah, as the question goes, the awareness and sensitization is of essence because building plan is a component of a developmental control permit system that allows you uh, feature into the regulatory or the authorities in charge of the building within the setting of Abuja an opportunity to assess, um, comment, um, also get corrected where the reinforcements and the mechanical, the electrical components, including the architectural, in the case of is being checked by the professionals,
Okay.
after which it's a due process, after which if okay by it meets the minimum development control standards, then you give it granted approval. And such occasions, it is the life way of a design or an existing building in the skeletal manner that is for the conception and for the recommendations for it to get permit to be built.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, how does a well-prepared building plan contribute to the safety of the construction?
A well-developed building plan, it's also a plan that have all the impetus of the strengths and the arrangement of the mechanical facilities, and also how these are solutions. They're different to be clear when you're sensitizing people. Some persons think that it only ends in just submitting your designs, having comment sheets, coming to work on them, after which you get an approval and you're done. This is just one part of it. In allowing to make this effective, for the safety unit with the attributes you said of a building plan, a building inspectorates are there. And just like the name implies, they come to inspect the whole process. Where you're granted approval from the setting out, they come to check how your setting outs are. When you're setting in your baskets and your beam formations and all that, they come to check whether you adhere to the structural components of the strengths needed for a particular building to withstand the test of time. And those tests are subject to what we call the soil test, in case it's one that is going that has a bearing capacity of a particular soil where the buildings are. When these are ascertained, then the next thing to check is what are the components of the
Yes,
the electrical facilities or the services drawing that are provided within the building, because
so you take us through the components.
yeah, the component, like I said, the structural, starting from the site plan, which is product of the site, the town planner, which places your building line, what are the distance measurable from your fence to the building, and the provisions of parking requirements for family. It was important also, I mentioned at the beginning that this building plan is also subject to land use and density identifications, which are given by the Department of Development Control. There you know the medium density, whether it's a medium density, whether it's a low density, whether it's a high density. A high density being a component of a low income earner, so it has a multiple number of families ranging from a size that it's more of a block of flats, and then the medium density, which is the medium and as the name implies, which comes in terraces, Uh, it's a range from one, for the high density, it's from 8 to 14 family, as the case might be. And for the medium density, it's from 4 to 6. Maybe in the case of where there's densification, you have 8, depending on the flexibility. But one thing that is not important, aside as a town planner, whenever you're assessing the building plan submitted, you have to make sure that the number of families fall within the same setting. It meets the setbacks, the building line, the rear and the side setbacks must be met. That is the assessment of what the planners do on the structure. Then we come to the architectural component, which is also what people check. But the functionality of what people check in detail of the architectural component has to do with the lighting, the ventilations, and in the case of some designs where the ventilations are not crossed, it always provide a room for artificial air lighting and airing, which is AC and light. It's always not accepted in the development control standard. So you must make a provision for sufficient lighting and ventilation. Then the structural, which is basics, because it tells of the strength, the number of the reinforcement that you need to run through from the ground, from the setting out to the first floor to the second floor, as the case might be. Then comes to the sewer, which is the mechanical engineering, which provided a sewer and water services within the building, where run taps, where run the toiletries. All of these are checkmen in line. Then the electrical, which provide the load schedule and the load bearing capacity of a hotel residential. This also, their attributes are combined to make what is the checklist in the site plan. Not forgetting that in line with the requisite for submission, you have the soil test, the site analysis and locational report, and some case environmental impact assessment for massive that will tell you the mitigative measures or what are the outcomes of the impact of a particular building or the adjoining properties. When you have all of this, these are the checklists that you check, and when they are okay, you're granted approval. Then it now moves to the another part, to the building inspectorate unit, because
Okay.
designs are now submitted to them. Okay, go and make sure that this thing that was checked and given approval to. You need a stage approval, which is coming to start with the setting out. How do you set out whether you adhere to the same families, a requirement that has been given to you that was granted, the approval was granted to you. After which, they will come and check, and they will come in a team, the structural engineer, the builder, in some case, and the electrical and the mechanical. Everybody will come to check that, okay, you have adhered to what was granted to you. And in such case, you see, the case of safety is so assured, and everybody will always be clean. In the most cases where you get issue of collapse building, most of the time you see that those were not checked. So
Yes, before we even go into that, please, I know you are talking to us from a very informed perspective as an expert this morning. You were explaining a lot of things, key components of what we need to know when we are doing carrying out our building plan. Yes, in highly populated environment, there is this thing with. I want us to be more practical. You go to some buildings, the only thing you could see is the gate. You can only close the gates. You can't park inside. They will use the whole of the land for building. You talked about inspection, and I want you to make it clear for us on this program this morning, because most people I know, is it taking advantage of because you are not living there? You are not living there. You want to like put it on rental. You want to make sure you you use the whole of the environment. But before you respond to that, let's go on a break. When we come back, you're going to respond to that. Yes, we are here and we are still talking about awareness of building plan, what you need to know, why it's important. But let's go on this quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. And if you just tune in, we are here and we've been talking about creating awareness on building plan. Before we went on that break, I said you are going to respond to how people should I call it, manage the whole of the land, and they will build on the whole of the land. The only thing you see is just close your gate and park outside, and you have people supervising.
On such occasions, if you're being realistic to most this analysis per se, you know that there's even change of land use have occurred as a result of preference that people give to some where they call very uh, prominent areas within the city center even. But what is more important in this awareness and sensitization, I think it's an FCT issue that I want to point out that is more alarming because in the totality of the land, total land area of FCT, you realize that over 8 years now, they've been embargoes stopping building plans from area councils. That hasn't been fed too well for the sensitization over there because what that does is that most of the building that you see going on outside the city center precisely are not granted approval.
Okay.
And if this is not considered as a result, in the nearest future, we might be having issue where
Yes.
you have a building that are substandard are not checked. And with the issue of maximization, as people may put it, is still subject to maybe ignoring an aspect of development control building inspectorate. Maybe, uh, but there are not obvious cases that you see within the check, the ambit of the city center that will do such crazy thing. But it happened before now because the distance between the beacon and government sold houses is different from those that existed in normal land plot sizes because you know how the system was before now. It was more like housing that was combining in a block of flats. So you just see when the government house is doing the surveying unit, just try to identify everybody's quotient. But in the case of a new fresh approval, it's very rare where you abolish a standard in times of compressing and you're still granted approval. But why I made a mention of the issue of the embargo is because in most of the times when you see such, you see more at the outskirts of Abuja city, but not within the Abuja city. But if it's within the Abuja city, it will always be areas that were already existing that only have a status of government-owned house through the FGN sold government sold houses process, different from lands that you submit for approval. But what we're talking is purely building plan, and if we're talking about the building plan awareness and sensitization, it definitely has to do with try not to build a house without submitting to development control for assessment and trying to have the best of input on it.
There is another question that I really want you to respond to it before we go. We talked about that behind the camera, but I really want you to respond to it. Since we are talking about building plan, there are some persons that have done this building plan, approval is given, but because of the size of the purpose, you see that they will quickly change the plan on their own without going back to do some formal uh, information they need to put on the building plan. And it is happening. This is the practical one. So I really want you to refer to it right now that you
Yeah,
are here.
yeah, most of the times when you have approval
Yes.
and you didn't develop from the day your approval is given after 6 months, it's subject to revalidation.
Okay.
And revalidation, even if you're on process and you're not done, it means you will submit to the department so as to ascertain what is the reason. Is it still okay? In the case where you start having a foundation and you abandon it, they subject you to Smith Hammer test, where it tests the strength of the material to know that okay, whether the foundation is still strong enough to carry any further or it is not longer strong to accommodate such building. And there's also resubmission that most people do, which is the case of what you're saying. You might have submitted something small, then maybe at the beginning, then you realize And all of this attracts penalties
Penalty, because any
of a
penalty for
particular
non-compliance,
for
yes.
revalidation you pay 50% of it.
Wow.
For resubmission you pay
Mhm.
80% to the original bill that was paid, because this building plan, one thing that we omit is that after you assess your building's way, and a particular amount is given for you to give the government, which involve site inspection and all the things that you pay. You pay them in bulk in this time, and the processing plan of the building. So at the end of the day, these resubmissions give you room to modify. And based on the modifications, the department may tend to charge you more, so that, or they charge you because you're bringing it back to the department if it doesn't contravene the same land use, because it all still has to do with, it must be within the same ambit of the same density, the same land use, unless when you're changing after granted an approval of a change of land use differently, that has been suspended also for a while now. So the only reasons that you do, some people are still comfortable with it, that you are okay, you change the land use and you keep paying contravention charges on annual basis, depending on what has been altered. But aside that, most resubmissions, if they are not done behind the camera, there are things that also the system recognize. It's called resubmission, where people remodel what was initially approved as well.
Okay. Let's bring in technology here, because we've gone global. The world has become a global village now. We want you to talk to us what technologies or software can assist in creating accurate and detailed building plans.
This software is in the most municipalities of the world. When you want to access your designs, there are software at your doorstep or at your fingertips that you don't need to make a submission officially like
Yes.
this. You might contract consultants within online and tell them, okay, this is your brief, and they, without going to the, but the design will still be pushed to the admin,
Yes.
but at your fingertips, without going out to do. These technologies have been working as much as, even if it is not running too much plan. We have the DEFSIS, which is called the Development Control Information System, that it's aimed at also futuristically planning to allow you have an access directly without having to come physical.
Yes.
To do it. We have, just like we have the AGIS, which is also an information system, Abuja Geographical Information System, that is the mandatory land custodians or land storages or land repositioning of the whole FCT. And you have also uh, even the LIS, which is a land information system, it's also in the system. But all of this awareness, all of these technologies, they are not um, accessible or wide broadened because we are not technologically friendly. So there are people that still have so access to the technological aspect is, yes, building plan is something that needs to be done. But what is even more important is, it will be shock you that if you're leaving some with from Ido after the airport bridge, some persons might tell you they never know what the building plan is.
Yes.
Because, and also that is one thing
And
that
this
is
is city
more
center we're
often,
talking
yeah,
about.
that is
Yeah.
one thing that we want to call on the government of the day to put more reasons and to put more sensitivity in the sensitization programs, awareness, so that the locals will know. Yes, they might have development control staff, so extension at even local government. But because land zone, the urban original planning have pulled out some of the this zonal land managers at area council because of lack of proper channeling of who owns the land, the issue of land clarity, the regional components of the whole of FCC is still not properly there, because if it is, lands are going to be administered in a manner that everybody can seek developmental control
Okay.
approval from that sphere without even coming to town.
Okay, as we round up quickly, your final words, your advice, and you respond to this. While building is on, can it be modified in the process while it's up for building as we round up?
Yeah, building, where building can be modified, yes, they can be modified. In fact, they are subject to modification because buildings are not static structures, so they get to decay by time. So most of the times they give a periodic of 10 years. You actually have to standardize and make submissions so that you meet with the current trends of what is happening so that you don't have an uh, outdated parquet in a city center. And that's why the coloration of even buildings are meant for within Abuja. They used to call Abuja brown, that is meant for residential. That is to make it a colorful and also a very friendly situation so that you don't have a haphazard color, you have red, you have green. No, they are regulated. And also with the random final words, I will still repeat on that sensitization
Yes.
is good within the city center, but trust me, about 40% to 45% of the locals are yet to even get to confirm what this it is. It will be a thing of the government that they move managerially, move people and allow approval be handled by the satellite and development department, even if it's an approval unit, because even abroad you have the local planning authority that are responsible for that. And also the land use review was not ignorant of that when he said the locals should process the approval locally, even if it must have a central server to collect them collectively.
Thank you so much for the information you gave us this morning. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yes, we've been talking about awareness on building plan, and the town planner with us has told us a lot why it is important and the key steps we need to know when it comes to building plan. And we've been talking with Abubakar Sadiq. Once again, thank you so much for coming on the
Thank you,
program.
man. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
the program is Good Morning Abuja. Let's go on this quick break. When we come back, we have more for you. Stay with us, please.